My name is Emily Parker, and I never thought a broken light could change the way I saw my life, or someone else's. It started on an ordinary Tuesday evening in Portland, Oregon. I'd just come home from work, exhausted and frustrated. The living room lights had been flickering for weeks, and that day, they finally gave up. My apartment felt dull and lonely, and honestly, that matched how I'd been feeling for months. I had moved to Portland after my engagement ended. 3 years of planning a future, gone in a single, cold conversation. Since then, I'd been living quietly, focused on my job as a freelance designer, trying to convince myself that I was okay being alone. But that night, in the half-dark apartment, I sighed and finally decided to call the maintenance number my landlord had given me. "Hi," I said, my voice a little uncertain. "This is Emily in apartment 3B. The lights stopped working again." The man on the other end sounded calm, professional. "We can send someone in the morning. Or, if it's urgent, I can come by in about an hour." I hesitated, looking around at the dim room. "If it's not too much trouble, tonight would be great." "Not at all," he said. "I'm Jake. I'll be there soon. An hour later, a knock sounded on my door. When I opened it, the hallway light cast a soft glow on the man standing there. He was tall, maybe in his early 30s, wearing a dark utility jacket and carrying a small toolbox. His hair was slightly messy from the rain outside, and his smile was polite but warm. "Evening, ma'am. You called about the lights?" "Yes. Come in," I said, stepping aside. As he entered, I noticed something in his manner, a quiet confidence, but also kindness. He wasn't rushing, not impatient like most people I'd met lately. He set his tools down and glanced up at the ceiling. "This kind of thing usually happens because of a loose connection. Shouldn't take long." I nodded. "That would be nice. I've been living in the dark longer than I'd like to admit." He chuckled softly. "We can't have that. For the next half hour, Jake worked silently while I made tea in the kitchen. The sound of tools and the occasional spark of light filled the quiet apartment. When I came back with 2 cups, he was standing on a small ladder, testing the bulb. The light flickered, once, twice, and then, suddenly, the whole room lit up beautifully. I couldn't help smiling. "You did it," he smiled back, stepping down. "Told you it wouldn't take long." I handed him a cup of tea. "You deserve this." "Thank you," he said, taking it carefully. "It's been a long day." We stood there for a moment, surrounded by the newly restored light. It felt symbolic somehow, like a small corner of my life had been fixed too. As he packed up, we started talking. At first, just small things, about the weather, about how Portland never seemed to stop raining. But then, the conversation deepened. He told me he'd moved to the city after leaving his family's business. "I wanted to do something different. Something that felt like mine," he said, glancing at his hands, rough from work. I nodded, feeling an unexpected connection. "I know what you mean. I came here for a fresh start too." He looked at me curiously. "Fresh start?" "Yeah," I said softly. "A long story, but let's just say it involved a ring and a goodbye." He didn't laugh or pity me. He just nodded, understandingly. "I get it," he said. "Sometimes broken things just aren't meant to be fixed." His words hit me harder than I expected. Jake finished his tea and smiled. "Well, your lights are good as new. But you might want to replace that old fuse box sometime soon." "Thanks," I said. "I'll do that." He turned to leave, but before he reached the door, the power flickered again for a second, and both of us looked up, laughing. "Guess I'll be seeing you again," he said with a grin. Guess so. That night, after he left, I sat in my now brightly lit living room. For the first time in months, it didn't feel lonely. A week passed. Then 2. The lights stayed fine, but one rainy evening, I heard another knock. When I opened the door, Jake was there again, holding a small bag of screws. "Hey," he said sheepishly. "I was in the building and thought I'd check that fuse box." I smiled. "Sure, come in." He spent maybe 15 minutes adjusting the box, but this time, the silence between us was comfortable, almost familiar. When he finished, I offered him tea again. It became our thing: tea, light, and quiet conversations. Over the next few months, he stopped by sometimes, always with a reason. A safety check, a follow-up visit, a just in the area excuse. We became friends. He'd tell me about his dog, Max, and I'd tell him about my work. Sometimes we'd just sit and talk about dreams we hadn't told anyone else. He once said, "You know, I used to think fixing things meant tightening wires and changing bulbs. But sometimes, it's about listening." I smiled. "You're pretty good at both." He looked down, blushing slightly. Maybe I just found the right person to practice on. One evening, as the sun set over the city, I found myself thinking about how much my life had changed. I wasn't waiting for something to begin anymore. It already had. Jake wasn't just the guy who fixed my lights. He had quietly brightened every part of my world that had gone dim. That night, when he knocked again, this time just to bring me some homemade cookies, I opened the door, smiling. "Everything's working fine, you know," I teased. He grinned. "Yeah. But I thought maybe we could just talk this time." We did. For hours. About everything. About nothing. And as the evening turned into night, I realized something. Sometimes the light you've been waiting for doesn't come from a switch on the wall. It comes from someone who walks into your life quietly, carrying a toolbox and a gentle smile. Months later, as we stood together under the same warm light he'd once fixed, Jake said, "You remember that first night? You looked so sad." I nodded. "And you looked like someone who could fix anything." He laughed softly. I guess we both fixed something that night. And he was right. Because sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks, it arrives with a flicker, a spark, and the soft glow of a light that finally stays on.